Greetings and salutations, travelers. Welcome back to the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and as always, welcome back to our Around the Hearth discussions. This time, we are discussing, we're in August, and that means Augustine Allusions. Not illusions with an I, but allusions, because we're going to be talking about things that aren't just illusory, but also allegorical, perhaps, and metaphorical, and, all of those different oracles that you could have. So there you go. Before we get into it, you might notice there is someone missing. I don't know where Levi is. Maybe he'll pop in a little bit. I don't know. But we're still going to have a shout out since I kind of had someone kind of picked out anyway. Before we do that, let's go ahead and do announcements/introductions. But I mean, for those of you that have been around, you'll see that these aren't new people to be introducing necessarily. But I'll start us off so they can think about what they want to say. I am Adam L. Spain with the Inn of Planar Crossroads, and we appreciate you travelers coming by. We hope that if you like this type of content that we're doing, you would help us reach our $100 per month goal of support, whether that's through Patreon, Subscribestar, Locals, or Direct Contact. And the actual web page is working with buttons. It's just a black one with some text on it right now. I'm hoping that I'm having to do it myself, so I have other things set aside to do creating, so I'm not sure I'm going to be on top of it real fast, but I'm hoping to get it edited a bit more, maybe have a different background, something more thematically appropriate, and so on. But that's what I've got, really. That landing page is there if you want to check us out, TheIoPC.com or innofplanarcrossroads.com. It gets you there. That's what I've got. So let's go clockwise from Dan. So Dan, Mustache, and then Scrat.
All right. Hey, everybody. Dan from Avenue Studios. And during this theme collaboration, we will be doing a Force Forge where we build a one-shot based on the discussions we have here, and then we play it live. And this one, for Augustine Allusions, will be run by Adam himself. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Who knows what will happen? I think the biggest announcement for us with August is we're shifting our live streaming time as we're trying to change things up, both for lifestyle and to see if more people are able to watch. We'll be live streaming 6 p.m. Eastern, which moves Force Forge and the live play to a different day, which I haven't discussed with everybody yet because it's the past and not the future yet. Well,
it's past future, but that's right. Getting into the weeds about what we're probably going to be talking about. So
yeah, just warming it up. So anyways, Wednesdays Wednesday 6 p.m. Eastern, we'll be live playing After Quest, and then TBD on the Force Forge and actual play that will be in coordination with these Around the Hearths. So, and then of course you can find us on Rumble and on podcasts anywhere they're found. So that's us.
And to clarify, so the game will be live, but also the Force Forge will be live?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So switching to a live streaming channel for a good part of the content. All right.
We're trying. We'll see what happens.
Exciting. It's more stress.
All right. That means we're to Mustache.
I'm Jonathan Great Mustache, and I'm with Open Legend RPG. Enough said.
Oh no! Yeah. I don't have to edit that one. I don't have to edit that one in. There you go. All right.
Well, that's a win-win.
Yeah.
Well done.
All right. Guys, it's my turn. I'm Scrat from Squirrel Plays over on YouTube, where we talk about world building, character creation, storytelling, and all that good stuff, and anything else I can think of, because I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. But that spreads to TTRPGs, video games, movies, or whatever comes across my plate. And recently I've been dipping my toes into trying to review some smaller known or lesser well-known TTRPGs. So that's been kind of fun. But other than that, we're just a small little community trying to grow so people can share what they come up with and get feedback from other people in the community and hopefully get better at what they're doing. I'm just pretend I'm dropping an acorn, I guess. I saw the edit on the last one. It was pretty good.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
Well, it was surprisingly difficult to try and find a squirrel dropping an acorn. They ain't dropping those acorns. They're picking them acorns up. It's like, no, they ain't doing that drop stuff.
You need to get the squirrels where they're doing the Superman landings.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
there you go.
those are
Yeah.
pretty good. Because sometimes they're funny like that. They actually do that. So, anyway. All right. So he's just a little squirrel with big dreams. We've done our shout outs. Oh, I actually do have to remind thank you for talking about the live streaming stuff, because it reminds me the fiber optic internet is supposed to be down this way soon, and by the time this goes live, we should have it. So we should, in late July or August, start back up our art streams and other live stream stuff as well. That kind of house specials content that we were doing, that actually should be starting up already. So there you go. You'll be able to see us create things live, and you'll be able to buy the art pieces that I actually make. So
Nice.
there you go. If it's not for like a supplement that we're working on or something, but otherwise, yeah.
No, I will say, I remember you saying that like last year that it was just a month away.
Yeah, well, it was when they told us that. But no, that turned into you can register for it. We're gauging interest. Yeah. What do you mean gauging interest? It's fiber optic internet out in the boonies. Of course we want some.
That's what happened here.
Come on. All right.
I'm excited for you, man.
It'll make things a lot smoother. It will. All right.
For sure.
That's not getting into the discussion, though. So before we do that, we've got our announcements done. Now we need to do Levi's Spotlight. We're still going to call it that, even if he can't make it. So it is for Dragna Carta, which has 934 subscribers. We like to shout out people that have fewer subscribers than us. So Dragna Carta has several videos out. The most recent one is these 3 narration tips will transform your campaign. So there you go.
Sweet.
Yep. And despite having 934 subscribers, he's got 900 and something views on this video. So I'm like, all right, there you go. Everybody seems to outdistance me, but I last longer.
Turtle wins the race, right?
Turtle wins the race. All right. And the squirrel just rides the turtle, so,
Yeah.
constantly... Yeah. That would be interesting. There's another thing, like racing turtles, and the squirrels are riding them like at the fairs, or something like that. All right. Again, before we get into the weeds too much, I believe we're done with all of our upfront stuff. So that means that we encourage you to grab your preferred beverage. Join us around the hearth as we discuss Augustine Allusions, specifically incorporating the Wacky into your game. And since I had to describe what I'm meaning by the differences between, or like we're going to discuss, wacky, weird, surreal, and then the Dreamscapes ones, which is our kind of setup this time. What we're terming as wacky this time is things that have a lot more to do with the tone of it compared to other things, perhaps. So some examples to kind of set our mind around it might be things like Adventure Time, Looney Tunes, Fighting Foodons. I don't know if anybody remembers those. That was a weird anime about how they cooked food and then the food came alive to fight for them in some kind of arena battle or something like that. It was on Fox Kids, I think. So
Really? Okay.
Yep.
That's awesome.
That is definitely something, which makes it wacky, which is the point of this one. Real monsters might be termed more as wacky than weird, in my opinion, but I'm willing to be convinced otherwise. That Nickelodeon show. Who Framed Roger Rabbit would be considered wacky, I would think, even though there are a few heavier things talked about, but the main tone and feel of it is not necessarily some kind of hard, harsh thing. You can let your kid watch it and they'll be fine. It's kind of my thing there. And then even something as with color palette tone as dark as The Nightmare Before Christmas could be considered both wacky or weird, depending on where you're kind of drawing your line. I consider it a little more wacky, and I'm willing to say why another time when we get to weird. But those are some things that you can look at. Adventure Time is probably the most one that is apropos for this particular theme of discussion, because we're talking about TTRPGs. And if you've ever watched Adventure Time, it is not hard to understand why we're making that thing. I'm making that comparison because Finn calls himself a paladin, calls himself lawful good, and all this type of stuff. Like, he says that in the show, and all these things. And I can get it. I get what they're going for. I don't agree. He is not lawful, but I get it. He is definitely chaotic. But that's what I've got as a lead-in for considerations, and the idea that tone is probably the most important thing when it comes to a wacky game over a surreal one. So what are you guys thinking along those lines? Did you have any thoughts to just put out there real quick?
I had a question.
Okay.
How do you prevent your TTRPG games from turning into wacky? That seems to be my experience.
Who wants to do that?
Well, at least in 5e anyway, because everybody has such crazy powers. Just a bunch of silly stuff starts happening.
Well, that's fair. I guess that kind of leads into the idea that it's a really easy thing to do wacky games.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually serious games that can be a little bit more tricky to keep the players into. It's like that meme that you see on the TTRPG things. There you go. Oh, that's the good one. That's Mustache. Yeah. That's appropriate. It's like that meme you see in the TTRPG circles. You've got how the campaign starts, and it's Lord of the Rings, and you got how the campaign ends, and it's Monty Python and the Search for the Holy Grail.
Yeah,
so
or Benny Hill music.
Yeah.
Yep. So I guess if you're having fun, you don't have to prevent it. But if you are wanting to tell a serious story, everybody should have kind of that buy-in in session 0. I think a nice balance of this is Bomb Squad, because Iliad is not really a serious character. I mean, the things that have happened to him, under the surface, he's very serious. But on the surface and everything, he's not a particularly serious character. And that goes
you've got you've got some guest stars that are super serious, like Riker Thorne.
Yes.
Oh yeah. They're like, man, couldn't get that guy to crack a smile, man. Tell you what.
So stoic.
So I think part of it with wacky is, I think it's easy for things to become wacky just because of how roles can happen, right? And how you're trying to interpret what that role means. Like, when you have a super strong character and you end up rolling a 3 and you're like, well, what happened there, right? Mm-hmm. So sometimes players can go like crazy with describing that. But I think, like, if you're setting the tone before the campaign starts, it's how much you want to embrace the wacky, right? Like, what's in my background right now with giant cats shooting colored laser beams. What you can't see is there's some unicorns down here, right? So, like, part of the question is, like, how much are you going to embrace that to start with? Does the world have crazy stuff happening all around you? Like, if you're thinking about Animaniacs, right? Where sometimes in some of the Animaniac episodes, there's crazy stuff happening in the background that isn't necessarily pertinent, but it's like just background theme. So, like, are you going through a city and there's giant cats waging war, but you're just going about your daily life?
I like that. That's interesting.
Which almost, it actually just made me think a little bit of Free Guy.
Oh.
I don't know if I know that one.
It's the Ryan Reynolds one.
Oh, yeah, okay.
He finds out he's an NPC in a game or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't watched it yet, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I could see how that would be a thing. Like, the insane... It's a bit of a balancing act. It's a tonal balance that you're looking for, because it is very easy for someone who knows their, like, to use the Fall Guy example, Free Guy example, it's very easy for that to get really dark really quick, to know that you are an NPC in a game. On the other flip side of that, it can just go all wacky. If that player, like, I guess it's like the flavor of insanity you want to have. Is this a fun insanity, or is this a very dark and grim insanity? Because, you know, I think that...
I'm just thinking two thoughts right off that, but I also wanted to think about Scrat's question too. But would you consider just a clarification on definition of wacky? Are you thinking more stays in that positive outlook on the insanity? And if we're shifting to the negative, it might go into a different category? Or do you think there's...
Well, I mean, mostly I was just joking when I brought it up, but it does seem to be my experience in 5e is when, because of the power scale, people are, and I'm guilty of it too, you're so tempted to do very silly, nonsensical things that you would not do in reality.
Yeah. Well,
part of that depends on if you've got a comedian as a player.
Yeah. Well, I definitely have one of those.
That is fair. It is interesting to watch, especially when there's that other type of that other thing that can happen is something that starts out really silly, like the joke character, eventually through the campaign becomes the darkest character.
That's been my experience.
I really like stories that do that, where they start out very silly. Like there was some very silly anime. I think it was Gurren Lagann. They knew it was an anime. They leaned into it super hard. Were just making fun of themselves. And then about halfway through, something serious happened. And it's like they were still being silly, but the tone was just this drastic shift. And you're like, oh, wait, I'm attached to these characters. Don't do that.
Oh, that's nice.
And I guess that's a way you can have a lot of fun with that, is to, just let your characters be characters. And there's, I think, something that's important to point out, along with tone and making sure you guys are on the same page about tone before you start, is that wacky things can happen inside of serious games, and serious things can happen inside of wacky games. But it's the overall tone that really makes the difference. One of the ways that this can be characterized probably is, say you've got a setting, and that setting is inherently silly, like having food based around the whole kingdoms. We did this joke where it's in our bloopers, the morality of the chocolate kingdoms or something like that, where we discovered that white chocolate is actually the most evil, because it's not really chocolate at all.
It's all a lie.
It's a lie. And then the darker the chocolate, the more lawful good it would be then, by the, stretching it across the alignment scale. And then milk chocolate is neutral. So it all swerves around that kind of axis. So something like that is inherently silly. The idea of the chocolate kingdoms, the idea of the hard-boiled eggs being knights and stuff like that, and by extension things like Alice in Wonderland and funny things like, I guess you could even say something like the Flintstones would work with that too. It tells funny, silly stories, but the things that happen in the Flintstones, like, you wouldn't have a TV in the Stone Age, but that's okay because everybody's buying into the idea that it's real tech, it's modern tech, just Stone Age version. So that's, that's kind of fun. It's kind of silly. And everybody enjoys it.
Now I'm thinking about Darkwing Duck when he went back in time.
Oh my god.
And all the devices were reversed of what they should have been.
Yeah.
The roads were rubber, and you had to pump them up. The oven was the washing machine. The washing machine was the oven.
That's a good episode.
I don't remember that one.
There you go. Darkwing Duck works.
Yeah, well, and I think another important thing to consider if you're wanting to play a wacky campaign is you can easily go overboard, and that can ruin it. Because if everything, like if you're doing like wild surges, for example, you can there's some wild surge tables out there that have like crazy things on them. But if every action the player takes, there's a chance of this crazy thing happening every single time, it can, completely ruin what idea they might still have for that character.
Mm-hmm.
So on that note, I was actually just talking about that yesterday. Everybody familiar with Borderlands? The video games?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I hate those games. They're just nothing makes sense in them. It's too wacky. Like everything's crazy.
Well, there you go. Here's a wacky one.
Too much for me.
And I can get that. You get that sensory overload, and it's that nice. You want to hit a nice balance with something wacky. Like you can play a game where you're basically Looney Tunes, but that's usually only fun for 1-2 sessions. I mean, you could do a month shot if you want, but it really only keeps its nice kind of spongy, elastic, toffee-like flavor when it's those small sweet bits that you get every now and then. So if you playing it once a month, it makes it something special. But if you eat sweets all the time, they cease to be tasty anymore. You lose your taste for it. So,
Yeah, diabetes.
I'm a diabetes. So,
Yeah, that's a really interesting thought. Can you how far can you stretch it with the wacky? Because if you go long enough, it kind of becomes the norm for the players on the table.
And then, well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just like, you lose that meta for the players of feeling the wacky.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like in Borderlands, if some of the characters were sane, it would balance it out. Or if the world was a little more sane and it just had crazy people in it, it doesn't work for me when your world, your characters, and pretty much your plot too is just all silly. Because like none of that would actually work.
yeah.
So I guess the question is, and this might be something that applies to all the talks, are all these topics things to sprinkle into your games versus trying to focus the theme entirely on that for your campaign? Because do any of these work? Well, some of them probably can with Surreal, but how well do they fit as a thing only by themselves, or is that too much?
Wackadoodle. Well, I stick by my previous statement of maybe a one-shot or something like that would be nice to have weird stuff. Wacky stuff. You can even do it in your own campaign. Maybe they're having a serious thing, and this kind of bleeds into our fourth chat a little bit with weird and wacky. I mean, with dreamscapes and stuff. But if it's like a one-off thing where this mad mage turns them all into puppets or something, and then now they have to play out D&D inside D&D, or something wacky and silly like that.
Or it could be a recurring thing where when the moon is at a certain point, or maybe once a year, the whole world has a different tint to it, and it makes all these wacky things happen. So it's something that the whole world knows about, or maybe they don't. Maybe it just happens, and to most people, they keep going about their day without realizing it. But maybe the players notice
that weird, funny, that strange, funny stuff. That so. Kind of build off of that. What is his name? Oh, I just had it. Sheogorath. Sheogorath is from the Elder Scrolls is fun a little bit. Like the Wabbajack is fun a little bit, and the Wabbajack can exist. Like if you want to have the Wabbajack, which is a spell staff that does basically random spells, all spells random. You could have that in your game, but that weird, wacky thing in a serious game is going to be, your players probably won't use it all that much. If they're real smart, they probably will only use that as like a, this is a Hail Mary pass right here, because the idea of rolling any spell in like a tabletop game, it would be any spell that you have in the book. rather than just the few spells that it has in Elder Scrolls. That's crazy. You could literally roll something like Fireball, or you could roll to turn them into a chicken, or you could roll to... And that's what this God of Chaos likes. And I guess that's one of the distinctions between whether something's wacky and whether it's weird, is the idea of how serious is this going to end up affecting things? How serious is it? Because if it's...
Well, I think that depends on the spells on that staff, too, to a degree.
Right, because if you can... Like, even the turning someone into a chicken, that's wacky until you start to think, well, now that person has to live out the rest of their shortened life as a chicken.
Well, it's kind of like the deck of many things, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I wouldn't consider a lot of that stuff wacky. You know, that's a little bit more...
So I'm wondering that, does Wacky tend to have more of that happy-go-lucky, kind of an optimistic or rose-colored view of weird stuff? Because, like, a lot of the, Adventure Time, it actually does have some pretty serious themes in there and stuff, but the whole thing's just goofy. Same with Animaniacs. It feels goofy, even if they are touching on some things.
Well, and that's the thing, is where I think it's more like it has to be sprinkled in, even if it's like a majority thing. Because even with like Pinky and the Brain, right? There's still like Brain still, even though he tries to deny it, he still clearly cares about Pinky.
Yes.
Like there was at least one, if not more, episodes where normally he would never stop, but there was something that was going to happen to Pinky, and he gave up the plan that would have worked. It would have finally worked, but because Pinky was in danger or something, he gave it up, and that's like almost out of character for Brain, but it still has that seriousness in there, right?
What are we going to do tonight, Brain?
Take over the world.
That was good.
Hey, that wasn't too bad. It was one rodent imitating another. I'm not surprised.
Yeah, well, I guess there's that.
But you do have that point. I do like the I like entertaining. I don't subscribe to it, but I like entertaining the fan theory that Pinky was actually the hero and was trying to stop Brain from taking over the world. And so he always messed it up. But that's just me. Yeah, I do think it's a tone and an amount thing that's going to work best. If you want to play a full-on like Looney Tunes Animaniacs thing, that's really great for, like we've been saying, one shot maybe. But when it comes down to the idea of actually trying to rationalize, if you can rationalize it, you're probably not playing a wacky game. If it's rational, if it's logical, it's probably not wacky. It's probably just sprinklings of strange and weird.
Well, it's like Tallahay in the one shot that I ran, where he had that he could pull random items out of a bag or something.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh
right,
yeah,
and so it was
the Hobbit. What is it? The Halfling's Haversack or something like that in D&D does something like that.
So like that's where it's like you can have some wackiness of what you might pull out, right? You pull out a bouquet of flowers, it's like okay, right? Versus pulling out a wand of fireball, right? Or siege fireball.
Yeah. Which does make sense for a Tele, so
Indeed.
So there you go. I think this is a good spot to go for our final thoughts. So, I will let you guys go first. We started at Dan at the beginning for shout-outs and stuff, so let's go to Scrat and then Mustache and then Dan for final thoughts.
Oh, no.
No.
No, I'm with the mustache, man. You gotta... I think if you lean too much into one thing, that's when you blow it. That's when you hit Borderlands territory, because you just have to, and it doesn't, not just for wacky. Like if you lean, I want to be dark and edgy. If you lean too much into that, well, nothing's going to have any edge to it. Nothing's going to be dark. So you got to find that balance, at least from a storytelling perspective, I think. And that wacky is like a really hot spice. You got to be careful with how much you sprinkle in there. But that might just be me though. Like maybe I lean more towards serious stories, but I always felt like the most gut-wrenching deaths in movies or stories or whatever was when the comic relief character died. Because he was always there. He's lightening the mood. Full Metal Alchemist, that guy, when he died. Yeah, that's everybody's favorite scene, right? He was the comic relief, and
in both versions of Full Metal Alchemist, it was rough.
Yeah. What is that? It's a terrible day for rain. So
yeah,
comedy, wacky, definitely. I guess he wasn't wacky, but you get the idea. It has its place, but you gotta. My opinion is you gotta use it sparingly. Mm-hmm. But I might be a grump. I don't know. Y'all can tell me.
Grumpy little squirrel, isn't he?
Grumpy squirrel. That's what I use in all my thumbnails. He's sitting there just all scrunched up and got his arms crossed and everything.
I think the hot sauce is really good too, though, because different people have different levels of liking the hot sauce too. So
for sure.
Everybody's got their limit.
Some people like to sweat from all the hot sauce and spice, and some people just like it silly through and through. I mean, Borderlands has done well. I won't deny it.
There's a market, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, sometimes some people need that complete relief, reality break.
That's true. All right, what you got, Mustache?
Yeah, I mean, he stole most of my words, so I don't know what to say now. No, but yeah, it's about. It's always about, of course, talking with the players, talking with everybody at the table to determine what you want overall. But yeah, I think too much wacky can be bad for sure. So it definitely needs to be balanced with some other things. Whether you're doing it as a one shot, whether you're doing it as parts of it in the world, like Wild Surges. I know I had one player that had some. Of course, I had a table of 1,000. No, actually, I'm sorry. It was 10,000. It was 10,000. It was 10,000 different things. I found this list that somebody made of 10,000. So we were rolling in Roll20 the D10,000. Some of the stuff was crazy. Turn your hair purple whenever you speak the bubbles, which are some of the classic things. But it added an element of that. Okay, something crazy is about to happen. That can be wacky and mess with things, and that can be fun. But yeah, when it's too much, it's too much. I think with wacky, it would be hard to run a year-long campaign in a completely wacky setting. So I think, where it's sprinkled in sometimes, where maybe there's a certain part of the world in the campaign that's like that, or a certain time of the year when something wacky happens. Maybe some people choose not to go outside during that time while there's risk it, and maybe get permanent effects. I think that's the sprinkling it in to make it interesting. And then, of course, you're going to have some characters who are wacky anyways and introduce wacky stuff like reaching into their biceps and pulling out an entire kitchen, right? Things like that. That's just absurd, but it adds an element of fun because it's not like an everyday occurrence.
And I think
it's kind of one of those things where when you do something too much, it loses its potency.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What you got, Dan?
Cool. I was thinking about kind of going off of that it's like a tool. It's a tool you can use in your games, because I have found too, like we mentioned with the wackiness, the wacky character tending to die, Ryan's baby character in our one game that we did that ended up becoming serious. I think the wacky can
became serious really fast.
Real fast, yeah. That's a hyperbolic type of situation. For those who know, check it out. It's hilarious. But it can be used as a tool to, because I'm wondering, thinking back to Scratch, talking about how a lot of times 5th edition games especially tend to get to that. Maybe you're losing grip. It could be something to read at your table, because it could be a way to let some steam out and then use the wacky to actually get at something more thematic or potent in your story too, because it would allow that silliness for people to kind of step back out of reality for a second, enjoy the moment, let some steam out. Maybe you even have an adventure just in your game where it's a wacky wizard. They have to go, into the wacky wizard's tower. something like that. It could be a really nice tool to shift things around and see how it twists and turns the story, and maybe work some things out. Because I've found sometimes throwing in those wacky things, if everyone's involved in the story, can bring something out in the character's story that they might not have addressed well, just sticking with that straightforward serious. Maybe it helps you think outside the box, because you're literally stepping outside the box with the wacky for your interpersonal stories. So, I don't know, experiment. See what you do with it.
Yep. I guess we're to me then. So, I guess two things to kind of go with is the idea, build more something to complement the thing that Mustache was saying about that time of the year type of thing. There are mad as a March hare. Maybe springtime, spring fever makes you crazy. Maybe there's a reason that this particular village or something like that or has that saying. Maybe there it's not hyperbole. Spring fever makes you crazy. When springtime rolls around, if you don't do something, everything just gets silly. If you don't kind of, like, the players just kind of come into this, and it doesn't fit really well precisely with this one, so I'll save it for next one, but having it as a localized thing, like a town, that has that one thing that happens for them. And that ties into the idea of something that I'm surprised none of you got to yet. Fae.
Fae, I was just thinking that. I was going to say, if people didn't leave gifts out for the Fae at springtime.
There you go.
Yes,
and the Fae, because they're the Fae, you can either tie this to whether you want to do Fae or you want to do a Maelstrom type of thing. That's another option. But the weird, the wacky, the zany, all emerging in this one place at this one time on a regular enough basis that people know not to be there at that time. And it would be really funny if this is one of those moments where you are having a bit of a lull in the game, especially if someone can't be there. They come upon this empty town, and it's right at the end of spring. And everybody's just so beat, but this town's abandoned, there ain't nothing there, and, now they gotta wait. And it's like this town was abandoned, a few months ago. Maybe people left before winter came around, so maybe that's what they think. But really, everybody left around winter, because when spring rolls around, that's when this place has like a cosmic tide of Fae or something like that. Fae energy that wafts through just a little place in reality where it drifts in and then ebbs back out by the end of spring. So they're coming at the end, so they're not going to be completely overwhelmed. But by this time, the Fae have burnt up most of their powerful type of strip you away and go make you come with them to the Feywild forever. Now they're just kind of bored, and they're stuck here with not as much power. And they're like, but we got enough to mess with these adventurers that just walked into this town. And so you have your one shot right there where everybody's dealing with that. And then, boom, you can have your type of Fey, fun, wild thing. So there you go. Sorry about that, viewers. I had internet hiccups. Waiting for that fiber optic. All right. But those were our final thoughts. I believe we got everything we needed from that. So we appreciate y'all coming. We've got Dan from Avenue Studios, JP from Seventh Sphere Publishing, which is who publishes Open Legend, and Scrat from A Squirrel Plays on YouTube. So, glad that they came by. Check them out and support them in the various ways you can. Support the In a Planar Crossroads, getting to $100 per month support if possible. And as always, have a great day. God bless and enjoy. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, wow, that makes me.
Ooh, look at that.
All right.
This content was made possible by travelers and viewers like you. Thank you.
Some kind of third party 5th edition or even Pathfinder. We did Savage Worlds for ours, which was fun. I agree. It would be a great open world. I mean, you've got so much setting already established too.
Mm-hmm.
So much fun to play in.
He's back, but he's not there. Did he say he finished the recording?
No, there he is. We've just got a green screen. Hello. Oh, we're not hearing anything.
Yeah, can you hear us? We can't hear you right now.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Did you make it?
Had to reset stuff. Yep. All right. I guess.
Well, we figured you were on your final thoughts. We had already spoken, so.
Yeah. All right. So outro, I guess, is what I need to do now, since it reconnected. Well, you guys, I guess it reconnected me to the call automatically.
Yeah.
All right.
Nice. Yeah.